Welcome back, guys. It's Claire. So today is going to be another book review, and I don't have the physical copy with me because I listened to its audiobook, which I haven't listened to a full audiobook in like 3 years. So it is the prolific, the possibly infamous Sarah J. Maas book, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So this is the first of its own series. Sarah J. Maas has 2 series, I believe, running right now, which is like kind of confusing to me. I've never read any of her stuff before, and I was kind of confused by like what books to start with. If the series took place in similar worlds, they don't. If they share characters, they don't. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is the beginning of its own thing. Although I have never read any Sarah J. Maas, who's probably the biggest YA fantasy author at the moment, I have heard quite a bit about her because she seems to be fairly controversial. I haven't looked exactly into the controversies and if they're valid for this series. I will probably make a second video about that, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe so you can keep up to date with all my new content. But I was really excited to see like what she was putting out there, if she was worth the hype, because I know she has a very, very dedicated fan base, and if she was worth the scrutiny. So this first book, just to give a general non-spoiler synopsis, is a girl who's kind of taking care of her desolate, extremely poor, starving family, gets taken in as a prisoner by this high fairy and goes across the like fairy wall into their fairy world and is a prisoner with this guy, but it's kind of a Beauty and the Beast almost retelling, but not. And it's a very interesting book, the way it's set up, really long. I think the audiobook was 15 hours. And I guess I don't know how long an average audiobook is, but it definitely felt long. There were several points where I thought like, oh, this is gonna be the end. Oh, it's not. This is gonna be the end. It's still not. The last third of the book is so wildly different from the rest, but the last third is also the best part. Also, already have continued on listening to the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury. So I'm obviously into it. I really liked the woman who read the book. I don't know her name. I'll leave it in the description below, but her voice was really soothing, and I think she did a really good job with all the different character voices, because some of them were like different types of monsters or disturbing creatures, and she always had really interesting voices for those. There was a lot of different male characters, and those voices were also very distinct. I just think she did a really good job with that. I could recognize what character was speaking even before the tagline came in, which I think is very impressive. Is there flaws? Yes. I don't quite understand the scrutiny against Sarah J. Maas as of right now, but this is only the first book that I read of her. She seems to be loved or hated, and as of right now, it's like, yeah, I could understand maybe finding this book a little, I'm not even sure if off-putting is the right word, but some of the dynamics between the characters are a little edgy, but I personally don't mind that, but maybe those who are a little bit more sensitive might. If you're into YA fantasy, especially if you're into romance, I got really hooked by this book, and I'm extremely interested to see what happens, so I would recommend it for that alone. Okay. Getting into spoilers. So, like I said, I thought the last third of the book, when she goes under the mountain and meets Amarandis, I believe was her name, the like evil fairy queen, was so good, but a completely different book than what we just read. It kind of turned into like a weird fairy Hunger Games, and I mean, I was into it. I was living for it. I would say what it had that the rest of the book didn't was a clear tension and rising action and like a clear like something is going to happen, where I think in the middle, after she came to Prithian and was staying at the estate, so I wasn't bored, but it definitely felt like a lull. It wasn't building towards anything, and that's partially how this book is set up, which is weird. It's a weird way to set up a book, because basically all this extremely important, pivotal, climax building information is purposely kept from us, the readers, as well as from Farah, until the like beginning of the last third of the book, when Alice tells her in this like 15-minute long spiel all this like history. Oh, it turns out all this information was hidden from you and therefore hidden from the reader. And here's all this backstory and why Tamlin doesn't have any magic and what's going on with the fairy world and all these politics. And it basically got info dumped onto you, and that's not my favorite thing in the world. Yes, there were kind of hints throughout the story that there was clearly something going on and there was information being kept from Farah. I don't know. It still wasn't my favorite way for information to be revealed. However, like I said, once she got to Under the Mountain, I loved all of that. I was just addicted. I needed to know what happened because it just got so brutal and violent, much more action-packed, a lot more dramatic. Oh my gosh. So I'm pretty into Rye because I didn't read it, I listened to it. Their names are a little bit off to me, like I can't remember them as well. But Ryland or something like that, I love him. And I love the whole Farah being bound to him in this really like intimate way with her tattoos, almost like their souls are bound to each other because she needed him to help heal her. That was good stuff. That might have been my favorite part of the book because that's just so interesting. It's like, yes, that is the kind of over-the-top drama that I'm looking for in stories like this. I found some of the stuff, again, in that middle to be kind of predictable, where it's like, you know what's gonna happen. And part of it also is because this dang story is told in first person. I cannot stand first person. I'm still reading the series, so obviously it's not disturbing me that bad, but it just takes away so much tension. Being stuck in one character's head for me can just make that character really grating. Even when she's not. I actually like Farah quite a bit, but there are things about her where, like, how many times can you hear her describing herself being scared? Because there was like 12 dozen different ways that she could describe, like, her blood running cold, goosebumps running down her arm, her bowels turning watery. She used that one like at least twice. You just hear the same type of descriptors over and over again because you're in her head, so she always has to describe how she's feeling, which is not always bad, but you're just trapped there. First person is just not my favorite. But yeah, I actually was pretty impressed by Sarah J. Maas's writing. I thought that it was descriptive and creative and pretty. Is it the best writing that I've ever heard in my entire life? No. It's odd because a part of me kind of feels like the fairy world lacks depth, but then it's like, oh, it can easily be explained away as like, well, because of the plot, because this evil fairy queen has like desolated everyone and caused so much chaos in the realm. And I have heard, both from the internet and from someone in real life, that the second book, this Court of Mist and Fury, is amazing. Like, the first book is good and the second book is incredible. So that also makes me pretty hyped. You know, maybe she just needs this time with the first one to really set everything up, and then things really go off in the next book. I wonder. We'll see. I really like the beginning. The first third or fourth when Farah was with her family. I really felt how poor they were, how isolated their town was, how stressed Farah was trying to keep her family alive, her family dynamics. The middle I thought got kind of dull and felt very flat. I wish that it was a little bit more involved or vibrant. My favorite part of when Farah was first in Prithian was when they had, I want to say it was the Summer Solstice Festival. It was when Tamlin was a fiddler and she drank some like fairy wine and she danced all night. It was when she and Tamlin first kissed. I just liked that whole scene. It just felt very like alive and magical. And then I really like Rai. There's just something about him. He just gives the story a lot of energy, because with Farah, although I like her, she can be a little bit one note or predictable. And Tamlin even more so. I like Tamlin. I think he's a good romantic lead, but I definitely feel like I can pin him down really easily. The best scene with Tamlin was after he had to go through that like spring ritual, and he was basically this feral beast that went after Farah, but like in this really like sexual way. I don't know. I was like, is this what people get upset about? Do they think this is like a little too edgy? Because it kind of was, but I was into it. Oh, the amount of sex that this book has, kind of wild. I did not know that YA was even allowed to be so explicit and kind of intense. It's a lot. Final third is amazing. I thought that ending was so good, where she had to kill two innocent fairies and then ultimately like kill Tamlin, but then not kill Tamlin because that was part of the riddle or blah blah blah. But just having her do that is so cruel and so horrible, and I really was like, is she gonna do it? Is she not gonna do it? Would I do that? Oh my god, like it's just such a good moral conundrum to put someone in. I was kind of confused having her be resurrected, I guess, as a high fae. Okay, they can just do that. That's fine. I'm not that mad, but I do get kind of irritated with magic systems that I don't feel like have any real rules behind them. And all this magic that's going on here, I definitely feel like just there's no rules. It can be fun, and it's clearly used for like plot elements or for drama, and I'm not necessarily mad about that, but like the fact that she can just be resurrected into high fae, like that's never been mentioned before. That just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere because we need Farah to live, and it would be way cuter if they were both high fae. I prefer some more fast and steady rules. It doesn't need to be as complicated or intense as the magic system is in like Name of the Wind, but I really liked how it was like in a darker shade of magic, where at least you get a sense of like, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, here's kind of how magic works, just having that baseline. And it's, yeah, maybe it's like broken a little bit because ultimately they want to do something with the plot or with the characters or whatever, but do I wish that this book had a little bit more magic structure? Because there would just be things, they're like, oh, the big bad evil queen fairy took away all the high fae's magic, so what they're left with is very minimal or whatever. But the magic they were left with, the magic that we saw for the majority of time that Farah was in Prithian, seemed like they could just do anything at any time. Like there would be occasionally like Tamlin would do something and Farah would be like, oh, he looked a little stressed or tired. But it's just like, what? How can he do that? How can he do that? And now, oh, afterwards it's just like, these fairies are just so extra powerful, and now that all their magic has returned and all their power has returned, and they're gonna be able to do crazy things. And it's just like, I like my magic systems to have rules. I definitely have more to say on the topic, but I'm going to look into see what some of the more controversial claims are when it comes to this series, and probably make a video talking about those claims directly, because I am curious if the controversy is behind the way romance is portrayed in this story. Perhaps I personally was into the romance. It's no like Zutara or Raylo or anything. It was cute. I thought that it had a pretty decent build from like her hating him and him being indifferent to her, to him protecting her and saving her from danger, her appreciating that, and then both of them kind of simultaneously falling in love with each other. I thought that was done pretty well. Yeah, if you like this kind of video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out with the whole YouTube algorithm thing. If you have read this book before, or if you have opinions about Sarah J. Maas or this book or any of her other series, please leave it in the comments down below. No spoilers though, I'm still working my way through the second book. Make sure to subscribe so you can see videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!